tapping into the true potential of the human spirit. This is Humanity Empowered. This is the Implicit Show. Hello, and welcome to the Implicit Show. My name is Brent Dubé. I am your host today, and I'm pretty excited. It's Thursday, one of my favorite days of the week. I feel like I say that a lot. I have a lot of favorite days of the week. What can I say? But today we got a special guest, and her name is Lisa Dad. I know Lisa because a few months back, I got to speak at a TEDx event. A crazy, lucky blessing that I got to have. It was really great to be able to get up there, share my message with all sorts of people from my hometown and everything. So that was awesome. And Lisa was one of the other speakers. And I loved hearing what she had to say. She had a great talk. So I'm sure you could go find that somewhere online if you search her name. But I'm gonna give Lisa a chance to introduce herself here and tell you guys a little bit about her story and some of the experiences that created Lisa Dad today. Lisa, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks, Brent, for having me on your show.
Hey, my pleasure, my pleasure. The listeners are going to get lots from this. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your story.
Yeah, sure. So you can hear a little bit about my story, as you said, from the TEDx talk. If you look up TEDx Lisa Dad, D-A-D-D. But I guess the biggest evolution for me in the past few years is that I recently walked away from a corporate career that I had for 15 years, successful corporate career, and decided that I needed to walk away and find more fun, meaning, and purpose in my life. So I had worked, for a long time, climbing this corporate ladder before I realized that it really wasn't where my heart was. And I felt like I could make a bigger impact in the world and be happier while I did it if I went out looking for that elusive, following my passion type of a story. So I guess that's the short version of it. We can kind of get into some of the details of it as well, if you'd like.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, we've got lots of time to talk about it. So tell me a little bit about maybe some of the reasons why you decided you wanted to pursue something different rather than the corporate career path that you were taking.
Yeah, I sort of fell actually into my corporate career. I actually wanted to be a physician. And so when I didn't get into med school, I sort of fell into the corporate world, and I got into this busy life that I think a lot of us get into, where we are just sort of going along with life as it's happening to us. And it's like, before you know it, before I knew it, 15 years had gone by. And I had been saying for years, when I figure out what I want to do with my life, I'll go do it. And then all of a sudden I realized that I actually wasn't figuring it out. And I was like, do I expect this little magic fairy to fly by and sprinkle purpose dust on me before I actually do something? And one day I was literally standing in my kitchen, sort of contemplating my future. And I had been unhappy for a while. It was like I was, with each rung of this corporate success ladder that I climbed, I was getting less and less happy. And so one day I knew that big downsizing was happening in my company, and everyone around me seemed to be really terrified that they would lose their jobs. When I had this like huge truth bomb hit, that I was more afraid of keeping mine than I was of losing it. So after that, it was really hard to ignore the fact that it was time for me to actually make a decision for myself. I was sitting around waiting for other people to decide what my future looked like, when I didn't even want the job that I was in.
Yeah, I find there's a lot of people. I mean, one of the ideas or mindset shifts that really changed my life was, instead of going out and looking to find myself, I decided one day that I would design myself. And it's just a different mindset, right? Rather than, searching out there for something that is supposed to tell you exactly who you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to do in your life. I think it's a lot more maybe proactive to just make those decisions for yourself. And you might be wrong, right? You might change it years down the line. You might change it a couple of days down the line. You realize it's not for you. But as long as you make a decision today rather than waiting, I think that's just called living, right? We got to live. We can't just wait around and wait for life to make sense for some reason, right?
I love that you said that about designing your life, because a lot of people don't realize that that's possible. And I think I wasn't even thinking about it. It's like you get into the corporate world and there's these blinders on, and I was seeing my world through this like really narrow sense of possibility. Everything was like, what promotions could I get within that company? What would life look like if I was stayed in that industry, but a different company? And so it wasn't until and people would say to me, who's going to pay you what you get paid to do what you do? And I sort of let that sort of confine me for a long time. And the day that I made the decision that I was going to leave, it was like this bubble burst. And I was like, I could just do anything I wanted to do. And I could actually create that and design that for myself. And the more I stepped into this entrepreneurial world, the more I realized that that was more true than I had even realized even just a few years ago.
Yeah, and like you said it, the opportunities out there, they're really there's so many opportunities for us to go out there and pursue something that we're passionate about, right? Like the career opportunities are crazy. I remember when I was just getting out of high school and the guidance counselors were cornering me in a room and they're like, "What are you going to do with your life? Where are you going to go? What's going to happen? What school?" And there was just so many options. It was kind of crippling, but I just decided, "Hey, I want to play music." And so I decided, like, the internet came out, we had Facebook and YouTube, and I could like put my music out there to the world, and like they could receive that. I didn't need a record label or anything. And so there's possibilities out there if you really look for them. And so that's really amazing. Tell me about that the shift you made. So you said you were going down that career path for a while. What was it like finally breaking out and getting started doing something new? Because I find a lot of people, they're kind of afraid of that, right? They're afraid of any kind of change, because if change could be painful, like we could regret it, all these different things, right? But like, how'd that path go, that shift?
Well, the first shift I think I made was getting really, really clear on why I was unhappy. For a long time, I knew I was unhappy, and it was a sense of dissatisfaction, but I actually wasn't figuring it out specifically what it was that I was missing. So I think there's this need for people to, figure out what is your motivation for change. You mentioned that change is hard, and change is hard. So we have to be reaching for something bigger than the change. So, they say that the fear of you'll change when the fear of changing is less than the fear of staying the same. And so for me, it was once I got really clear on what I needed in my life, that I wanted to make a bigger difference, that I wanted to have some autonomy, to be creative, all of these things, it became really painful to stay where I was and really painful to be at my job. And so that was the first mind shift that happened. But when I left, I had this idea that I'll just go out and, give myself some time to look at options, and I could always just go back. I could go back 6 months from then. I could just go back. And that was over 4 years ago. And what I learned in that time period was that I was never going to go back to what I was doing moving forward. But just opening myself up to possibilities, because I think I had so many rules and regulations. And I talk about looking through that lens, that, that one corporate lens. As soon as I started to say, wait a second, what if it were possible to design a career of my own? What if it were possible to have a completely different life, and to go, even though I've got all this skill set from before, what if I could use it in a completely new way? And so it was a huge shift to say that I didn't have to like play between the lines.
Yeah. And I love the topic that you wanted to talk about today on today's episode. Is you were saying blur the lines between work and play. So what does that really mean to you? Where did that come from? How did that like idea come about?
Yeah, I guess I've been actually doing this for a few years now, but it was actually my sister. One day I was on the computer, and I had admitted to her, I guess, earlier in the week, that some days I got down the rabbit hole of the internet, when you get on Facebook and you're looking up something, and all of a sudden you have a shiny object over here, and, you kind of go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, oh
So,
yeah.
so here I am working away on the computer, and she says to me, "Are you working over there, or are you playing?" And I actually had to stop and think about it, because I wasn't sure. I was like, I'm not totally sure right now. And isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
And so this whole idea of blurring this line between work and play, I started thinking about the rest of my life. And I realized that when I go out to the park and I throw the ball for my dog, or I go for a hike, usually with my dog as well, often I'm getting a break for myself and for him for exercise. But I started to realize that my best ideas and my most creative inspirations come when I'm playing with my dog. So I thought, again, am I working or am I playing? If all my ideas for writing and for speaking and for programs and things come when I'm, more when I'm having fun and letting myself, color outside the lines, play outside the lines, the more I get to blur the idea of what is work and what is play.
That's really interesting. I mean, I like that a lot because I find that there's got to be a balance between enjoying life and achieving in life. And I always say this, I really believe it's more important to enjoy, to actually have fun. Because if you're, you don't want to be a martyr who's just like sacrificing yourself and your life, your experience, so that you could work, or so you could achieve, or so that you could do anything, right? But when you could enjoy your work, that's a whole other level, because now, I mean, you hear it all the time. I remember listening to videos of entrepreneurs, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, the big entrepreneurs, right? Making millions, billions of dollars. They all tell you, follow your passion, do something you love, work on what you love to do. And they don't just say, do what you love. It's usually work hard on doing what you love, because
Right,
the
right.
two go together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's definitely, you talked about the important mind shifts that happen. And one of them, I think, is in just that had to happen for me was just my shift of what work meant, right? Because, at least when I grew up, I was thinking that work meant you had to be in the grind. It had to be hard. It had to be something, almost like blood, sweat, and tears. And it's like this idea that unless you're struggling a little bit and not having fun, then, that is work, right? Whereas if we start to look at to say, wait a second, maybe work could actually be more productive and more in the flow and actually more ambitious if it felt like play, and so it's a whole mind shift, because a lot of people, I used to bring into the corporate world, I'd be running meetings and I'd always want to gamify what we were doing. So we got a lot of death by PowerPoint, 100 PowerPoint slides shoved down your throat. And I thought, well, what if instead I created a fun game show and taught people the same information, but had them actually playing a game in order to do it? And I kind of always wanted to do that, I guess, by nature. And often, I was like, we can't have fun all the time, Lisa. We got to learn. And I thought, well, I don't know. I think that we could learn more if we were having fun.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, I totally agree with that. That's the thing is, yeah, I truly believe there's a lot of power in the state of being that you're in, the state of mind, the state of emotion, whatever. And so if you're in like a happy, fun, playful, curious state, I truly believe you're way more likely to learn and to grow and to achieve than if you're kind of like, shut down or closed down or maybe a little frustrated or upset, right? And so, having fun, making the process enjoyable is like, I'll tell you, it's helped me so much. I mean, I remember when I used to work in landscaping, I would listen to music while I'm cutting grass, or I'd listen to something, or I'd listen to audiobooks even. And so I could learn and I could work and I could play and I could have fun all at the same time. And so it's really, like you said, I love the word you said, gamify, because that's something I like to think about too. I was a big video gamer. So if I could turn, any aspect of my work or my life into a video game, then hey, like, cool, it's fun. It makes it so much more enjoyable, right? You talked a little bit about what work means to you, or what you thought work meant to you, right? You gotta work hard, you gotta grind, you gotta not enjoy it. What about play? Like, what makes play for you?
play for me, I guess, is a combination of things. First of all, it feels fun is one of the things. But also it is, I guess for me, it's a space, I said coloring outside the lines too. A play for me is a space where I actually allow myself not to have too many rules. It's funny because I was
Mm-hmm.
into sports when I was younger, and there's a lot of rules in sports. But if you allow yourself to actually free play, almost like you're a child again, like you think about kids that are playing out in the yard or on the schoolyard, and they just make up the rules as they go along. But if we can, even as adults, give ourselves space to try out new things and be creative and follow not just what we love, but maybe what makes fascinates us or makes us curious, and we allow ourselves without attachment to it being meaning something, without it attaching to what the results would be. If I spend an hour playing, I need to have this at the end of it. No one says that. When you're playing, there's no expectation. You just go and you have fun and you sort of bend the rules a little bit. So, if I would, suggest this to someone as a way to even increase a skill that could be used for quote unquote work, or to grow or to learn, is to give yourself an opportunity to sort of make mistakes and to be foolish. And I know you've been doing this podcast for a long time, so you probably have to play with it to see what resonates with people, and if it doesn't resonate, you just shift.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's that energy of being in a space where you will shift and be more flexible, and allow things to happen.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And there's such a balance there that you got to achieve, right? Because, if you just work, you get burned out, you get stressed, you get overwhelmed, right? But if you just play, sometimes you kind of get lost or you get caught up in something, you don't get anywhere. And so you find the balance between the two. It's like the perfect combination. It's like anything in life, this
Yeah.
darn
Well,
paradoxes.
yeah. Well, but I like to call it purposeful play, right?
Yeah,
Because if you
yeah.
start, like we talk a lot, everyone talks about multitasking. Could you multitask? Could you do 5 things at once? My favorite phrase is actually multi-purpose. And so again, like hiking with my dog's a perfect example, because I'm doing only particularly one thing, but I'm exercising myself, I'm exercising my dog, I'm thinking, I'm clearing my mind, I'm getting creative ideas, I'm being out in nature, I'm soaking up the sun. So I'm actually, there's lots of purposes to me going for a hike with my dog. And if I'm throwing a ball at the same time, there's that full play as well. So if I can find more and more activities where it's like I only have to do one thing, but it actually meets several purposes, then that's where the blurring becomes, from blurring the lines. So instead of saying I have to get a blog article written today, I'm going to sit in my office till it comes up, the idea comes up, or I go, hey, I'll just go for a walk with my dog and see what pops into my mind spontaneously. And that's my blog idea. So that's where I see the purposeful play a little bit.
Yeah, and it works. Like I love that idea. I'm always looking for ways, in my habits or in my schedule or my just how could I get multiple things crammed into like one activity? Like you said, multi-purpose. I've never heard anybody use that, so I like that. I might steal that.
Go ahead and steal it.
Lisa Dad once told me.
I probably stole it from someone. And I think of actually a friend of mine, from Christopher Carter from This Epic Life. And he talked about full life integration, which is this idea of knowing what your big buckets are and then creating your life around things that touch all areas. So really, he's talking about this concept that I just termed multi-purposing. I don't know if I came up with that or if I heard it from someone else, but it drives what I do nowadays, because I can stop and think, is this exercise going to meet several of my sort of non-negotiables, as Christopher would say.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great ideas spread. That's the thing. It's like if you come up with a great idea and it's great, other people are going to like it. They're going to take it and they're going to use it in their lives. It's going to improve their lives too. I mean, I can't even imagine how many people I've plagiarized with just like all the knowledge, like the books I've read and the videos and the podcasts and everything, right? But it's just like, hey, if it's going to help somebody, I want to pass that on. I want to share that idea. So it's really cool. So where does that take us then? Blurring the lines and play. Could you give us another example of like how you've used this in your life?
Do you want a personal example or what I'm doing in my business now?
Why not both?
Both. Okay.
We got time.
Yeah. Okay. So actually yoga is another great example for my own sake. So I do hot yoga, although I need to get there soon because I haven't been the last week. But hot yoga for me is a perfect example, because of course hot yoga is great exercise, right? And it is good for detoxifying your body of all the toxins that we put in it every day. And it's great for stretching, and it's great for all those things that are physical. But I find when I'm in the yoga studio, it is the perfect place to practice all sorts of concepts that I've read in books and that everyone says are good. But it is physically an embodiment of things like being present. Like you are in the present moment. When they're got you bent in all different ways and you're about to fall over, you have to be there on the mat, and they often, the instructor will say, if your mind has wandered, come back to the mat. And so it's like a practice of being present. And then it's also a practice in self-forgiveness. And so often, the instructor will say, don't be judging how far you go in the pose. Be celebrating where you were at. Accept it and own it. And so like, I go to a yoga class for some exercise, and I end up getting this wisdom and this embodiment of all these concepts and mindsets that I believe in and that I want to exude. And it's just a place to practice it. So that's one of my examples.
That's amazing. I love yoga for that, and you get the breathing in there too. And so breath is the most important thing you could do for your health. And in yoga, you're constantly being told, okay, breathe, big breath, in the nose, out the mouth, right?
Oh, there's so many, right? Mindfulness and stillness. And I mean, there's so many things you could talk about with yoga, but that's kind of a good one for me, because I know, and usually I leave yoga with another idea for a blog to write, or for, a video blog or something. So that's one of examples in my life as well.
That's cool. So guys, you could use that. Totally. Go do some yoga, take a class, get an instructor there who could help show you through the process. Really cool. So what about in your professional life? How about, with some of your business stuff, how'd you kind of make it fun for yourself?
Yeah, it's becoming more and more fun, I have to say, because, this entrepreneurial journey is, a windy one. There's lots of analogies I can make from that hike to base camp that I did at the TEDx event. But one of the things that I am bringing this sense of play more into my work with my clients. And I did a pilot project early this year where I really did that. And I gave a 30-day intense customized challenge for my clients every single day. I gave them a way almost to play in a different space. And so I'll give you an example. One of the women was struggling with a business that she's starting. And who's your ideal client? Who's your avatar? What are your key selling messages? All the basic businessy type things were getting her stuck. And so I gave her the opportunity. I knew she was a cheerleader in high school. And I said, okay, guess what you're going to do today? You're going to forget all of that business stuff. And I want you to pretend you're back in high school and you're a cheerleader. Only the cheer that you're creating is for your ideal client. And you're going to cheer about how the two of you will work together and what the benefit will be at the end. So again, it just was a way for her to get into a different mindset, into a play mindset. I said, you get brownie points if you can do the cheer for us on video, which she didn't do that part of it. But the cheer that she came back with was almost like profoundly poetic. And for someone who said she wasn't very clear with what she was doing, when you read this cheer, I was like, well, I know what you're doing from this alone. And so it seemed that anytime I gave her something a creative like opportunity to stretch outside of her comfort zone, she really stepped into it and was able to answer all the questions that were all getting her stuck when she was thinking at a computer, that she had to do it a certain way. So, I mean, there's lots of examples I could give you, but that's just like kind of one of them, where I take someone's background and what they enjoy doing and allow them, to step into that space.
I I like that a lot. It's really counterintuitive to like what we do in school a lot of times, right? In school, we're placed at a desk. You sit there. You're told be quiet, just kind of listen and then do your thing, right? But
Yeah.
so for a lot of kids, it works for some kids, sure, but I know it didn't really work for me. For a lot of kids, they want to be outside. Maybe they want to be running around. Maybe they want to play or something. And so when you give them, or when you give anybody something that they love to do, a passion, there's something that they can enjoy doing, it just puts them into, like you said, a different mindset, a different state of mind. So it makes learning better, growing better, productivity better, efficiency, effectiveness. Everything is just better because you're in a better vibration. You're in a better state of mind. It's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and then the processing of what comes up is good for people too. That is usually where the magic is. It's not even sometimes just in the doing, it's in the processing afterwards. And so I'll give you another quick example. One of my graphic artists was really stuck. He did all his work on the computer doing logos and user experience platforms. And he also, in his past, had done a lot of work with his hands. He was a woodworking and all different kinds of physical creations, and he wasn't doing any of that, and he was kind of missing that. And so I had him create a logo and a symbol for himself as what value he offers the world, but I told him he could only use condiments from his kitchen. So
Okay.
he had to actually go into the fridge and pull out condiments from the kitchen and design on whatever he wanted, a plate or a tray or whatever, a logo. And so I just said, start using your hands again, start being creative again. But then he had to process what it would be, something that would represent him. He had to think about that. How could he represent his skill set and what value he offered the world? And so there's this thinking process thrown into this creative, like you're playing with ketchup and wasabi sauce. And it's like, again, it gives you that permission. You're already coloring outside the lines. So it's like you just click over to a different part of your brain that says, wait a second, if I had to look at it from the eyes of ketchup and mustard, what would that look like? Rather than on a keyboard, a two-dimensional computer screen. So yeah, I like to have fun with people.
That's perfect. We all like fun. I think. I'd like to think so, anyways. So one thing I like to ask our guests, because it kind of helps spark a fun conversation, is where are you struggling right now? Like in life, it could be in business, in life, in anything. Is there somewhere you're struggling, or somewhere where you're striving to get better?
Yeah. What I struggle with is patience. I always say when God handed out patience, I didn't want to wait in line. And what's hard for me, I guess, is I have all these thoughts and ideas and visions of what my business will one day look like. And the struggle for me is being patient enough to allow it to grow and evolve to that place. And so sometimes when I'm doing work, it's like I want to jump ahead 20 steps to get to where I see it being. And it doesn't always work that way. You know how it is. Sometimes there's a bit of a grind, and sometimes there's a detour or two that you're not expecting. That's why I love that analogy that I use with base camp, because when you climb to base camp, there's a lot of ups, but there's a lot of downs in order to get up. And so it always feels like you're kind of going backwards. You're not. You're gaining altitude every time. It just feels like, because you're going down, that it doesn't feel like you're gaining altitude, but it's sort of this like rising up. And so
Mm-hmm.
I guess entrepreneurship feels that way to me too, is that, you say people will say one step forward, two steps back. I don't think we're ever going backward. It's just sometimes we have to take little detours to get where we're going. So
Yeah, and that's the nature of life, right? I mean, you look in nature, you don't really see straight lines anywhere. The only straight lines you see are the straight lines humans have made, right?
drawn
Okay,
on them, right?
yeah, we
Yeah.
made a straight line here, right? But in true nature is all over the place, right? You're here and then you're there, and then maybe you grow and then you die a little bit and then you're over here and you're growing some more. It's like, yeah, it's an adventure, right? And that's what makes it fun. That's what makes the process enjoyable. I mean, if you could just snap your fingers and be 20 years down the line, it's your perfect life, your perfect vision. Well, then what happened the last 20 years, right? So
Yeah.
I could totally relate to that though. Like I'm the same way where it's like I see something and I want to do it and I want to do it as best I possibly can and I want it now. So I
Yeah.
put in a ton of work and stuff. But it's good. It's good. So tell us a little bit about where you're going right now with your life, like what direction and what's next for Lisa.
Yeah, well, right now I'm expanding that program that I was talking about. The I call it the Fab Track. It's like get off the fast track and get onto the Fab Track, which is the track to fabulous. Because my book is called Finding Fabulous,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about bringing more of that experiential learning and that play into helping people disrupt their own status quo. I think too many of us. I guess my expression lately that's coming up for me is being comfortably numb. There's too many people out there in jobs and in life in general, just either living society status quo or living their own status quo. And so my programs now are all about pushing people outside, of their comfort zones. And I guess I shouldn't say pushing, allowing them to giving them an opportunity to step out of their own comfort zones, because nobody can be pushed out of their comfort zone. They all have to agree to it. But I'm
Yeah.
bringing more of that into the Fab Track program. I'm starting another one in April for 30 days. And I'm planning also what I'm calling the Fab Quest. I'm also planning to take people actually up a mountain to do similar work where they actually can be physically outside their comfort zone and do a lot of this processing of what does that play and what is fascinating to them and what makes them curious, and and the challenges, what gets them stuck, and how do they respond when life is hard. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm going to continue adding these elements of play and this whole idea of balking the status quo. So that's where things are going for me right now.
Cool. That's wonderful. So where can our listeners get a hold of you, connect with you either on social media or on your website, or get a hold of the Fab Track?
Yep, the Fab Track. So you can find me at my website, which is lisadad.com, and that's DADD for those who are spelling dad. You can also find my book, Finding Fabulous, on Amazon. Fastest way is also to type in Lisa Dad, DADD. And very shortly, within probably by next week, I will have up the page to actually put your name on the list or learn more about the Fab Track. So until then, if you're interested, you can send me a contact on Facebook or on my website.
Cool, very cool. Well, Lisa, I gotta thank you so much. I gotta show some my love and appreciation for you. You're in California right now, am I correct? That's what we were talking
I
about before the
am,
show. Well,
yes.
that is
But
amazing.
I'm an Essex County girl, so don't worry. I'm like, my roots are back where you are. My family's very close to you, 40 minutes away in Windsor. So
I basically feel like we're neighbors. We're just
we
neighbors.
are
It's good. It's good.
basically we are neighbors. Chatham, Kent, my old stomping grounds.
Yeah. Well, anyways, guys, make sure you go and connect with Lisa and what she's doing. It's really cool how she's helping people to come out of their comfort zone so that they can, live an exciting life rather than just being comfortably numb with the way things are. So thank you again, Lisa, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And you guys, if you guys want to support what we're doing at Implicit, you could find us at patreon.com/implicit. And that's where you could get all sorts of books and programs and coaching and mastermind and all that fun stuff to help you guys help reach that next level, reach the mastery you were looking for in your life. Okay. Thank you so much. We're out of here. Lisa, let's
Thanks
see the
very
peace,
much, Bren.
see the
Lots of
peace
fun.
sign. Peace,
Peace
Lisa.
out. Peace out.
See ya.